Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo. Bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jedley. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville, located in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so very honored and absolutely delighted that you are joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in that mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Amazon Music, Podcast Addict, Audible, CastBox, Player FM, wherever you find your favorite shows. You could call this Speech and Language Pathologist Day today here on Reading with Your Kids. Two amazing speech and language pathologist authors here on the show. First, Mindy Hudon will be here to celebrate her wonderful graphic novel, Kodi's Adventure, How I Learned to Defeat the Time Snatcher. And later in the show, Lavelle Carlson will be here to celebrate Quirky Cow, the Cuckoo Concert. We'll also learn a lot about how speech and language pathologists can make a difference in kids' lives and help them to become lifelong readers and learners. Are you looking for a creative way to bond with your kids? Let me tell you all about Drawing with Your Kids, the ultimate destination for artistic adventures. Join us as we dive into the wonderful world of children's books with renowned illustrators guiding you step by step. From beloved characters to whimsical scenes, unleash your imagination and create cherished memories together. Whether you're a seasoned artist or just picking up a pencil, there's something for everyone at Drawing with Your Kids. Please visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com, and click on the Drawing with Your Kids link at the top of the page and let the creativity flow. Drawing with Your Kids, where every stroke brings stories to life. I am so very excited. Our guest is here today to celebrate her brand new middle grade graphic novel. It's called Kodi's Adventure, How I Learned to Defeat the Time Snatcher. Please welcome to the show, Mindy Hudon. Hey, Mindy, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you? So excited to be here.
I'm really excited to have you on. What a neat title. Tell me about Kodi.
So I'm a speech language pathologist, and I specialize in executive function, specifically time management. And I work with a lot of children who are neurodiverse and have challenges with time management and organization and planning. So I created a graphic novel, Kodi's Adventures, and How I Learned to Defeat the Time Snatcher. The Time Snatcher is a character that I often tell the kids, like, watch out for the time snatcher. Don't let them gobble up your time. We all have time snatchers in our life, distractions that happen. And for children with ADHD or other challenges, they have difficulty with planning their time, and it's part of their executive function development. So I created a book based on many of the many of the children that I've worked with and the things that happen in their lives that they've shared with me. So Kodi is a middle schooler. It's his first year of middle school, and he is on his way thinking that things will be different from elementary school because he's older. But he finds out that he is still time challenged, which are impacting him throughout his school day and as well at home, with homework, with getting the bus on time, with distractibility in the classroom and missing information, and impacting his grades. So I wanted a graphic novel which was visual for kids. And I was able to do that with the American Speech Language Hearing Association, which is my publisher. And we developed this book to help children and their families manage time, which really kind of flows over to other things in their life. If you're not on time, it's difficult for you to get to school on time. It's difficult for you to complete your homework and to get activities that you need to done in a timely manner at school and at home. And it can cause havoc for children, and then they feel defeated. So the time snatcher is a character in the book that is challenging him and causing him to have all of these distractions and all these difficulties. He ends up seeking out other people to help him defeat the time snatchers. And so the book is full of strategies that he uses and strategies in the back of the book, tips and strategies like that.
I guess my first, there's a lot we can delve into here. I guess my first question is, I don't necessarily see the connection between speech language pathology and planning your day and getting to school on time. Help me understand that connection better.
So executive function skills are brain concepts that we use every day. Our frontal lobe is kind of the conductor, and in the book I have a visual that I can show you. I know everybody else can't see it, but it's about the executive functions in the brain and how they are sometimes delayed, not only for children. Obviously, executive function skills develop until about age 25. But also kids with neurodiverse brains are also kind of a 30% lag from their chronological age. So speech language pathologists, we work with neurodiverse children, and we are very well trained in the neurology of the brain in executive function skills. So every day we use these skills to making sure that we can get our kids to school on time as adults, or that we have a meeting in 15 minutes, kind of like with this meeting. I had to make sure that I was ready for you by planning my time ahead in order to be ready for this time. If you're time challenged, like Kodi is, you actually are not able to complete those tasks as efficiently as you need to be more organized. So speech language pathologists have a huge umbrella of things that we work on, not just speech sounds, not just language, but a plethora of things that we're trained to do. And I feel that executive function skills are the foundation of anything that we do. We have to kind of be able to plan things ahead, self-regulate our movements and our thoughts and our everything about what we do. And, children have trouble with that, especially if they are challenged in the executive function area. So yes, I think we're very well equipped for that. And there's a lot of speech language pathologists that are focusing in this area as a foundation for their work with children and adults.
Now, is this area of the brain that kind of handles executive functions, is that the same area of the brain that is involved with our speech?
The whole brain works with executive functions. So the frontal lobe is kind of what I like to describe as a conductor, and it kind of shares what other areas of our brain should be doing, like planning and organizing, time management, impulse control, all of that. If the executive function challenges are delayed or behind, we're expecting children to do things that they may not be ready for. So yes, the speech and the language component of our brain is all involved within the scope of executive functions as well.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. One of the things that you mentioned about a kid like Kodi who has trouble getting their tasks done, getting to school on time, getting on the bus on time, is that eventually they feel defeated. And I think one of the mistakes, and it's natural that we make the mistake, is that we kind of almost blame the kid. Like, hey, you're late again. And we just pile on to that sense of defeat as opposed to let's figure out what's causing you to have these delays. And I love that you came up with the time snatcher.
Yeah, the time snatcher it's actually a character in his dreams. He hears about the concept of a time snatcher or something taking away his time, and he believes that this character is impacting him. So this is a child who is aware that he's having challenges and he's feeling it. I mean, there's a lot of things that happen at home with his mother where he's breaking down, not able to get things done. And then, of course, you have a busy mom. I mean, I'm a mom. I went through the same thing with my own children. And you do. You're like, why aren't you doing this on time? Why aren't you doing this? As opposed, like you said, looking at what is the challenge and how can I help that? And as a clinician, I do that. But this is a village with children, right? We not only need the speech pathologist to help this child, but we need the classroom teacher. We need the parents. We need the family. We need the school to understand that these children are challenged and that there are things that we can do as adults to help support them and recognize that this is a challenge for them. They're not doing this on purpose. And here are some strategies that we can use to help defeat the time snatcher. The concept of the time snatcher is kind of just like a whimsical kind of thing to help kids not feel like it's their fault in a way, but to kind of say, all right, I know he's taken away my time. I identify that. What can I do to change that? What can I do in my life? And I feel, and the reason why I put all of the strategies in the back of the book that are in the whole part of the graphic novel is that parents need to be involved, right? We can't just expect a child to use an analog clock and then know how to tell time. That's not going to happen, right? You have to teach, you have to be part of that. You have to encourage and show. And with the book, I think it's a really good map of helping parents figure that out and understanding it better.
I'm imagining, because we have a lot of teachers who listen to the podcast, and I'm imagining some of them out there might be thinking, okay, but I have to have structure in my class and I have to have deadlines, and I have a hard time believing that every kid that doesn't get their assignment in on time has this executive function delay. I think some of them just decide they're not going to do the report. How can I know the difference?
Well, that would be maybe discussing it with your special ed team and seeing if there's any disabilities that child might have. I work very closely, having worked in the public schools for many years, I have worked very closely with classroom teachers who actually start implementing executive function strategies into the classroom to help support all children, because all children are not, their executive function skills are not where they need to be, right? We're developing them until 25, 30 years old, sometimes beyond that, depending on the person. So many of those challenges that just because a child looks big doesn't mean that their cognitive skills are where they need to be or their executive skills are where they need to be. So by implementing these strategies within your classroom, just as a good plan of action as a teacher, helps everyone, like time management, right? There's a huge, in my opinion, problem with the digital world of time, because seeing a digital clock is now time. Seeing an analog clock is now time, past time, and future time. So if I want to plan my time, I have to know about that. I need to know that, I should have been ready 5 minutes ago. I need to plan ahead and think about how I'm going to meet that task and complete that activity by the time the bell rings, right? So when teachers implement analog time, which I believe is the best time, they can see, feel, the passage of time on an analog clock. So children learn that. I actually created my own children's clock for like a 3 to 8 year olds called the Be a Timekeeper clock that has little visuals and a bee on the minute hand and a snail on the hour hand to show that the passage of time is different. And I even help little 2 and 3 year olds manage their time by planning ahead. The bee is on the owl. When the bee gets to the caterpillar, it is going to be time for this, and planning ahead and visualizing, because a lot of children, especially little kids and kids in general, do better with visuals, right? We can have visuals to help support all of that. So right there in a classroom, by providing a time plan with kids, not just saying you have 20 minutes, some kids might know what that means and some kids may not. So if you just generalize it to the whole classroom and you make a plan about time management, here's the time, here's the clock, this is what we're going to do. When it gets to 11:20, which is this here, and show it to them, kids are better able to manage themselves, be better self-managers to analyze time. Same goes with organization of their desk. Kids need a visual. If you take a picture of the inside of a desk, match it. This is what I want it to look like. Kids are better able to do that. And the same at home. I want you to clean your room. For a kid that can't visualize that, it's very frustrating. I don't know how many times I've had to fight with my own kids in the past when they were little to get their room clean. And when you give them that visual representation of to match that, it makes a world of difference. And I do put all those strategies in the book as well, just as a way to help not only the child, but the parents see how to approach that at home or the teacher in the school.
That is really fascinating. I had no idea. I know I was aware that lots of young people aren't able to really read an analog clock. So I just like there are so many kids who can't read cursive writing. And I was in the first wave of kids who didn't learn how to write cursive back almost 100 years ago. But it's fascinating that you found that kids are better able to visualize and have a better understanding of time through looking at that analog clock.
Yeah, it is. There's actually a lot of research out there now, and people are realizing that. I don't know if you ever saw, I think it was some talk show. They went out in the street and asked 20-something-year-olds to read the clock, and they couldn't do it. And that's showing us that we're taking away a really important skill, time management, right? We need to be time managers. Once you understand the passage of time on an analog clock, using a digital clock is easy, right? Then you can visualize those chunks of time. Oh, I have 15 minutes. I understand what that looks like visually because I've seen it on an analog clock. Then I can manage myself and my time to complete a task within that time. I mean, and I think there's a lot of kids that have outbursts because they can't do that, right? They can't manage their time. And all of a sudden it's time to go or time to be done. And they're not done because they haven't been able to visualize it and watch the time and see the passage of time to keep on task. Things like that.
What would you say? Because different cultures look at time differently. And there are expressions that I won't use here, but we function on such and such time. And there are people that I've heard say things like that, our obsession with time and time management is oppressive to certain groups of people. What might you say to that person?
Well, everybody is an individual and everybody has their own thought processes and beliefs. So I don't know if I'd really say anything other than if it's impacting your life, if it's impacting others' lives, like if you have a job and you need to be there at a certain time, that's your boss's responsibility to kind of say, hey, you keep being late. What's that going to mean to you? Are you going to be able to keep your job or are you going to lose your job? Everybody has their own beliefs. So I whatever you believe, but in my opinion, in our world, in the United States of America, we are on the clock. Unfortunately, we are. Other cultures aren't like that. And that's great. But in this country, we are. We are expected to be at a certain place at a certain time. And Kodi's Adventure can't change that, right? I can only give you strategies to help you understand how to manage it better so that your stresses go down. The other thing is, I believe, because we just don't know as parents, right? We put time expectations on little children that have no idea about time. We use different time tools like timers. I was a big in the kitchen, put the timer on, get going, get it done before the bell goes off, right? To my kids. And it caused them anxiety. And I never realized that until I really got into all this executive function and the time management that really can increase anxiety in children with a timer on their, the stove, because they don't understand time going back. And all of a sudden it beeps and it startles them. So there's a lot of time things that we do that are not necessarily teaching analog time or teaching good time management that I feel should be put back in our schools. They teach time about how to read the time, but they don't teach about managing time and the passage of time. Not everyone. There's a lot of great schools that are doing that, but I've been in many schools that have digital clocks on the wall. How is a kindergartner going to understand that? They're not. When you say 15 minutes and then it's lunchtime and the kid keeps saying, when's lunchtime? Right? It's because they can't visualize it and they can't see it and they're not being taught to do that. So I actually have a lot of my clocks in the public schools right now, which is very exciting, because they're starting to utilize some clocks with the younger kids. And the same with Kodi. Some of the teachers are using it as read alouds in the classroom as well.
Well, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense how much this would help a kid who may be neurodiverse and has issues with keeping time and managing their time. But I think this is a book that could be useful for every kid and would be a great addition to the library, in classroom library.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. One of the things I wanted to share is that I did a book club at a local library, and the librarian said, I'm going to have our families read the book together. So I had about 5 or 6 families that came in and had read the book. And it was the best, unbelievable situation for me where kids came in and could talk about that the Time Snatcher was impacting their life. They were connecting with the book, connecting with the character. And not only that, I had a couple of kids, actually, and an adult. I had a kid that went to a consignment store and bought herself an analog wristwatch to help her learn to track her time, because it was a problem for her. And maybe it never was brought to anybody's attention or even to her own until she read the book. And she took it upon herself to do that, which was amazing. And then a mom deleted Facebook off of her phone because she realized that it was becoming a time snatcher for her, and she was losing a lot of time when she could be doing other things, which I thought was amazing. So it's been, those kinds of things where children actually make a connection with the book is pretty exciting.
I'm curious, how did you, because it's obvious that you're very passionate about this, how did you get interested in speech language pathology?
Oh, it's kind of a funny story. So years ago, when I was in college, I started as a special education teacher, and my older sister was in education, and it wasn't for me. And I called a friend, and we were flipping through a catalog book for my sophomore year, and I came across speech therapy. So I went to the professor and I said, I'm interested in this. And she said, why? And she asked me my other interests. And so she just put me in an introductory course. And from then I was hooked, because my sister has hearing impairment, and she struggled a lot in school because of her disability. And I think with that connection, it just fit. And I've been very passionate about this field for a very long time.
Well, I've mentioned it on this podcast a number of times. I have a great deal of gratitude to Mr. Wallenus, who was my speech therapist when I was in kindergarten and first grade and could barely get a phrase out, never mind a sentence.
Wow, that's amazing.
And I know some people in my life would prefer that I still couldn't put but they're out of luck now.
I wonder if your speech therapist knew that you would become this amazing podcast host and interview people from all over.
Well, he certainly didn't have the word podcast in his head, because this was like 60 something years ago. I don't know. He may have been very glad that he didn't have to work with me anymore, but he was, and it was really interesting because, I had a stutter, and my stutter still comes out every once in a while when I'm tired or challenged with certain words. But his stutter was way more profound than mine was.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he probably had it for all of his life. And so it was fascinating for me. I would sit there in class sometimes and, when I was doing my sessions with him, and think to myself, dude, you're worse than me. How are you teaching me? But he did, and I'm very grateful for him.
Yes, there's a lot of diverse speech language pathologists out there that can do amazing things, like your SLP. Even though he was a stutterer, he was able to teach you and guide you and help you, which is pretty amazing. So good for him. And that was a long time ago.
I'm very fortunate. I was attending a school system that even had speech therapy.
Oh, long time ago.
We should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Kodi's adventure, how I learned to defeat the Time Snatcher, and find out more about.
Thank you. You can go on my website, which is Mindy Hudon, HUDON.com. I also am on Instagram at Mindy Hudon Author.
We've had a great time speaking to the author of Kodi's Adventure, How I Learned to Defeat the Time Snatcher. It's a great new middle grade graphic novel from our guest, Mindy Hudon. Mindy, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Jed.
Hey there, families! Are you looking for an exciting way to bond and learn together? Look no further than our STEM is Family Fun video series. Join us as we explore the fascinating world of STEM through hands-on activities right in your own home. Our series features lessons from experts at renowned institutions like the San Diego Children's Discovery Museum, the National Children's Museum in Washington, D.C., and Children's Museum Houston. From making homemade rainbow bridges to creating an oboe out of a straw, there's something for everyone in the family to enjoy. So grab your lab coats and get ready for an adventure. Go to readingwithyourkids.com and click on the STEM is Family Fun link at the top of the page and let the learning and laughter begin. STEM is Family Fun, where learning and bonding go hand in hand. Before we invite our guest into the studio, I would love to invite you to visit a very special website. It's clownswithoutborders.org. Clownswithoutborders.org. This is a group that I absolutely adore. I am part of Clowns Without Borders, and I had the honor of being part of the 2023 tour of El Salvador. I had so much fun joining with artists from all over the world to bring a smile to people who really needed it and really appreciated it too. And we would love for you to join us as a monthly Joy Maker. Joy Makers, they're a family of people just like you who love to laugh and make other people feel good. So please take a moment and visit clownswithoutborders.org and consider joining me as a Joy Maker. Coming to us from the great state of Texas, our guest is here today to celebrate her beautiful picture book. It's called Quirky Cow, the Cuckoo Concert. Please welcome to the show, Lavelle Carlson. Hey, Lavelle, how are you?
I'm doing fine, and thank you so much for having me, Jed. And may I say it to the audience that I have seen several of your podcast, and I'm very impressed with your knowledge of reading and the importance of reading. So thank you.
Thank you again. Those are very kind words. I'll be very honest with you. When I launched Reading with Your Kids back in February of 2017, all of the things that you're referring to, I wasn't aware of. I launched the podcast because I know that the relationship I have with my now adult kids was built on a foundation of reading. I knew that if you read to the kids, then they're going to hopefully develop a love of learning. But all the things, like understanding that a kid who is read to every day for 20 minutes a day is going to end up going to school, hearing almost 1 million more words than their peers who weren't read to. No idea about that stuff. No idea that kids who read become more empathetic and all of those other wonderful things. It was great to learn. But for me, it's that bond that I have with my kids. That's what I wanted parents to really appreciate, that how important that is to reading together just helps you fall in love with each other.
Absolutely. And to be quite honest, before I became a speech language pathologist, I did read to my kids quite a bit, but there were a lot of things I did not realize other than the empathy, but, and hearing the words and developing vocabulary based upon it, and also that you turn the pages and the pictures are not upside down as they are for some kids who have not experienced books when they go to school. So there is a lot to learn.
There really, really is. And I'm so appreciative of authors like you that are creating books that families can read together. I'm also appreciative of speech language pathologists because as people have heard on the podcast, I had a very severe stutter when I was a kid. And, I think my speech therapist, Mr. Wallenus, would be very, hopefully very happy and maybe very surprised that I'm right now doing podcasts and having all these wonderful conversations and just occasionally stuttering when I'm tired and or when I'm faced with a string of words. I was very impressed that I got through Quirky, the Quirky Cow, the Cuckoo Concert.
Sorry.
If they had been words that began with F, I probably wouldn't have made it through.
That is funny. Yes, there are some tongue twisters in it, yes. But besides that, I wrote it with some other speech goals in mind.
So let's talk about those speech goals, please.
Okay. Well, actually, when I began working as a speech language pathologist and when I began particularly working with young children, it's like, okay, what are we going to do today? Okay, I don't have materials, come up with a story, jot down some stories that have their specific sounds in it. But then as I began to learn more and more, and now the American Speech Hearing Association has jumped in and said, yes, this is important that speech language pathologists do think about the pre-reading skills. And so much of that has to do, and I will try not to talk too long here, so much of that does have to do with hearing the sounds, but there is a progression. Of course, in schools, everyone hears the word phonics and understands phonics, the sound symbol relationship. B says B, and in Quirky, the C says K in this case. But there is a much more earlier level when you're reading to kids that you're teaching them that there are words within a sentence and they are separate words. So this is called phonological awareness versus phonics. And basically there are 3 steps to this. And the first step is, okay, how many words did you hear in this sentence? Or some of the activities when you're reading to parents is, finish this for me. The dog is wagging his
tail.
Okay, so that makes them aware of that one word. Okay, and then there are other times when you can clap out the sound. The dog has a tail. But then you move up from the word awareness to syllable awareness. Okay, how many syllables are in this word? Cookie. So if they do not know right off, then you're going to have them clap to it. Cookie, or you will have some other activities, or finish this word for me, showing them a picture. I want a cookie. Right. So they're learning that now we can break this word down into syllables. Then we move to a higher level where it's speech sound awareness. So you use a lot of the same activities you would, whether it be clapping or jumping or, some other activities that I won't go into right here because it is very, very, there's a lot involved. But once you go into the speech sounds, okay, you want them to be aware that there are 3 sounds in the word dog. Word for me, dog. And then you finish it. Dog, and you say "guh," dog, "guh."
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. And then you can do things. Okay, what's the first sound you hear in this word? Here's a picture, and it's a dog. What is the first sound in the dog? And you would say "duh." Or you would have some activities where you have 3 kids standing at the front of the room, and each of them is going to say. You'll have letters for them. D-A-L-G. And it will be in the same order in which the word is read from left to right. So then you would say to the other students, well, what's the first sound you hear? There's the letter D, and it's duh. And then what's the middle sound or the ending sound, whichever goal you're working on. Mm-hmm. So those are the 3 levels of phonological awareness before you go into phonics. And again, it is word awareness, how many words, etc., syllable awareness, then you go into sound awareness within the words. But for me, there is another level, and it is not a part of the definition of phonological awareness. But I used it years ago when I was working with kids, animal sounds, because when I was a little one, what did we hear? What song did we hear? Old MacDonald, E-I-E-I-O. And that was important, but now there are so many other ways that you can go into the sounds. And number one, it's a fun way. It's a fun way. There are so many activities you can do with kids, with animals. So you begin teaching them that, okay, a cow says moo, a dog says woof, or whatever you want, bark, woof, whichever. A duck, and you go through all of the animals, and again, you can have some of the same activities. But one of the things this does is not only introduces them to sounds and to our little speech kids in particular, who need to work on some of those sounds, but it also introduces them to teacher language, as in, all of the phonological awareness steps. Okay, we're talking about beginning, middle, and end. And what do you hear? What do you see? And so many of our kids who are at risk for reading, either because they have not been read to, or sometimes there are other causes. But this is so, so crucial that when they go into kindergarten, they're not lost when the teacher says first or last. They need to have that vocabulary. So it's important, not only for preschool teachers, speech language pathologists, but also parents to kind of, okay, let's read this story. Oh, finish this sentence. What was the last word or whatever? So I just feel like this is a pre-level to phonological awareness that is not a part of the definition of phonological awareness. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. It's really fascinating. And I have to say, it's funny when you were talking about introducing kids to syllables. Mm-hmm. I actually remember that day we were in school talking about it. Now we're talking almost 100 years ago. But evidently I was good at it because it's a very pleasant memory. And I just, as you're talking about, just flash back. I think a lot of, am I right in thinking that a lot of this learning, this phonological learning is when we're reading with our kids every day for 20, 30 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day, and we're doing it from a young age, that a lot of this is picked up by kind of osmosis. They can't name it. They can't say that's a syllable, that's whatever, but it's like they're picking it up. And so getting to school and a teacher starts formally introducing them to these concepts, it's like, oh, yeah, I know what that is.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's just great preparation for them. And I love it when parents read and not read to their children, or when I have the opportunity, even now, to go into a classroom. I'm retired, which I'm sure you know, but to go into a classroom and have the kids listen to me and sometimes stop within the book. It's not a matter of just reading straight through. There's a lot that goes into reading, and some of it has to do with the interaction between you and me and reading, and pick out a book that's humorous. Like one of my favorite is Mo Willems' Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus. I mean, when you read that book, it's not like, and don't let the pigeon ride the bus. You're looking at the kid and you're saying, oh, don't let the pigeon drive that bus.
Mm-hmm.
And you can even say to them, what's going to happen? What's going to happen if the pigeon drives the bus? Or something like that. Let's read and find out a little more. So you can make it interactive. It's not like you have to read this sentence and this sentence and this sentence and make it all the way through, unless you have a daughter like mine who way back in the day, I was really getting very tired of reading, and I finally said, okay, your dad has to read to you tonight. Well, her dad did not read it. He skipped a few places and he made some things up. So my daughter comes to me whimpering, like, he didn't read it right. But not all kids are that way. She was accustomed to me reading to her every single night. But no, it's very good if you can get the kids to interact, and not only to keep them interested, but it also, if you can do it in a way that, you make it visual, include their visual, their tactile movements, as well, auditory, visual, tactile. It really, really makes a huge difference in the brain development. Not only the reading, but also in the brain development and language and vocabulary development, because you're able to retain it more if you have all of those processes involved, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Lavelle, I just had an opportunity last week. One of our neighbors was in a bind, and she asked if my beautiful wife and I could watch her 2-year-old for a little bit. And he came over, and he's wonderful. And after he played with the stuffed Olaf and the little robot-y thing that my wife had from her classroom days, I pulled out a book. And I was reading. I should have pulled out a board book because he was 2 and he really couldn't follow the little story. But I picked the book because there was a character of the same name as him. Yeah. But it was just such a wonderful reminder of how much fun. And this kid, we'd seen him before, but it's not like we're a daily part of his life. But it just helped him feel so comfortable with both my wife and I. He would come over and hang out, and his dad came over, and I'm expecting this kid to jump up and run over. Dad, good to see you. Take me away. But it was like, no, I think I'm going to hang out with this guy for a little bit more.
Love it, love it, love it.
How did you get into being a speech language pathologist and working with kids?
Oh, that's a long drawn out. Okay, when I first began university, I was majoring in sociology, and due to monetary needs, I ended up, dropping out a bit and working, then getting married and thinking, okay, I will be able to go back to school. Well, I'll try to make this life story short. From Houston, we were transferred to Arkansas, and I started going back to school there thinking, okay, English, that's what I want now. Then we were transferred again to Bartlesville, Oklahoma, and then I had 2 children, so okay, we'll wait a bit. But then by that time, we were transferred to England, to London, England for 1 year, and then to Norway for 9 years. Okay, so, that was filled with travels and little kids. Then moving back to the States after that period of time, I said, okay, got to do it, got to go back. So we moved back to Oklahoma. I had to go back in and do some leveling courses. It took I think a year and a half in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, to, I think it was 3 semesters, because I had to do quite a few clinicals at the undergraduate level. Then I went to the University of Tulsa to do my graduate work. But I'm not sure when I came back, I was just thinking, okay, I remember one of my roommates back at the University of Houston doing speech language pathology, and I love to read. I love words. So I thought, maybe that would be the thing, and I've had kids, so I kind of understand kids, maybe a little, probably not as much as I thought I did. So anyway, I ended up going back to school and finally getting my master's. I considered my PhD, but we were thinking about or thought we would move again, so kind of dropped that. But that's pretty much how I got into it, and I have never, ever had regrets because one of the stories I like to say is that as a young child, I was a good reader and a good speller. And there were several kids, and I can remember them to this day who were not so smart. Mm-hmm. And you don't, as a child, you look and you don't understand that. And it was not until I became a speech language pathologist that I saw not only, okay, yes, we have some kids who cannot learn to read well, but we also have these kids who are so brilliant. And just because they cannot read well, or it takes them a long time to learn to read, a long time to learn about words, they still have some very exceptional skills. For instance, I had one student, I was working with him at home. He was diagnosed with Asperger's on, the autism spectrum. And he could decode any word, any college level word, science word. But his goals in the 5th grade were to learn to comprehend a 3 or 4 word sentence meaning. But what he could do was he could take a 3D puzzle, probably 200 pieces, and within a matter of minutes put it together. And I like to say that to this day, with my grandkids, if they ask me to do a 24-piece puzzle with them, that I will say, well, can you help me find the 4 corner pieces first? Mm-hmm. So that is an example of the brilliance some of our kids have. And going into speech language pathology, I think, was one of the best things for me as far as I don't think I did not lack empathy. I just had not expressed it with other people until I went into the speech field and saw, wow, this kid really has it. There are so many things that these people have.
Well, how fortunate that you've been able to see the brilliance and the special qualities of so many kids over the years. So I want to thank you for doing that for all of our kids, because I think it's really healthy if we start thinking about each other as part of one beautiful human family, and for you to help spot those kids that might be struggling in one area but are really showing some brilliance in other areas.
Yes.
Really shine. Have you taken the time to really think about not only all the kids that you've served in the classroom in person, but taking the time to let it sink into you that you're continuing to help families through your books, like through Quirky the Quirky Cow, and all the things that you offer on your website?
Well, I hope so. I really do. I like to make it as inexpensive as I can for parents, and I've been lucky, I will say, and I don't want to make it sound like a brag, but I've been lucky in my life, my husband and I, in that we've been able to do things. So I'm lucky that I can give back at times to others, whether it be through volunteer work, sometimes a little bit too much volunteer work here, because I live in a retirement community where it's kind of, okay, you can do this. But yes, it's just, I've been very lucky that I've been able to share with others, and I hope to continue to do this as long as I can, sharing with others.
Wonderful.
And the other thing is to be able to continue sharing with either teachers and speech language pathologists, but mainly the parents.
That's beautiful. And I'm assuming, based on the travel history, you told me that you were a military family.
Well, actually not, although we do. My husband and I do appreciate the military families, and we have been friends with many of those. but my husband worked in a different industry, worked in the oil industry. So he was kind of before the Vietnam when they were all calling them in. So we've been lucky in that way too. I think that it has given us the opportunity to travel and to share with so many others, and particularly our grandkids. So.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, why don't we take a minute to share where people can go to find out more about Quirky, the Quirky Cow, the Cuckoo Concert, and all the other services that you're making available?
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Actually, my books are on Amazon. They could just search books by Lavelle Carlson, Carlson. But also, I do have the website, and I try to make it very inexpensive. And it's called SLP for Speech Language Pathology, slpstorytellers.com.
Wonderful.
So I have a lot of materials on there, and I don't want this to sound like cheating. I would never, ever use AI for a written book, but I will say to speech pathologists and teachers, you know, you can do these worksheets. You can do a quick storybook for your kids for this particular sound, and they can take it home with them, and you can pop out a coloring page to take home with them. So I've really kind of become a geek in my older age. You know, it's like, okay, I can do this. What can I do? What can I do? But I will never, ever be able to emulate great artists. So I always try to say, I will do AI, but I'm not trying to outdo you. No. I've been lucky that I've had some great illustrators who have illustrated my published books.
Wonderful.
So yes, there are a lot of materials on there, whether they be coloring pages or mazes or just activity sheets, as well as articulation storybooks. So thank you very much for asking. I do appreciate that, Jeb.
You're welcome. You're welcome. We've had a great time speaking to the author of Quirky, the Quirky Cow, the Cuckoo Concert. Our guest has been Lavelle Carlson. Lavelle, thanks so much for being with us.
Well, thank you. And I look forward to more interviews that you have been giving along the way, and appreciate them greatly. Okay.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids, and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. Hey, a great way to make sure that you don't miss a moment of Reading with Your Kids is to subscribe to the show wherever you find your favorite shows. We love the iHeartRadio app. We love Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods. We actually love all the places that carry Reading with Your Kids. We hope that you will thank the folks for carrying the show, and we hope that you'll consider leaving us a review, hopefully a 5-star review, wherever you find your favorite shows. And if you're listening to us on the AM/FM 24/7 radio network, please be sure to tell your local station managers that you love that they carry Reading with Your Kids. We'd love for you also to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, @readingwithyourkids on Instagram, and @JedleyMagic on Twitter. And of course, you can find our Drawing with Your Kids and our STEM is Family Fun videos on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/readingwithyourkids. We have a wonderful website, lots and lots of content on readingwithyourkids.com. And if you are an author, you absolutely want to visit readingwithyourkids.com and click on the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page to find out how you can be a guest and tell thousands and thousands of Kidlit fans all over the world about your fantastic children's book. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, I want to start by thanking our guest, Mindy Hudon. Please be sure to check out Kodi's Adventure, How I Learned to Defeat the Time Snatcher, and Lavelle Carlson. Please be sure to check out Quirky, the Quirky Cow, the Cuckoo Concert. I want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Rory Grady. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.
Left.